session, I invite Mr. Sandeep Bangia, Head Electronic Vehicles, Tata Power, Ashish Dokania, Founder and CEO, Green Tiger Mobility, and Gaurav Chakraborty, Director, Industry and Customer Advisory, Automotive, SAP India.
Thank you very much, audience, for your time. And this is a very interesting panel discussion. I am from SAP. As I was introduced, I work with automotive customers, pan-India, for various digital transformation in automotive, including electric vehicle-related transformation. With me, I have Sandeep Bangia, who is the head of electric vehicle, Tata Power, and Ashish Dokania, who is the founder of Green Tiger Mobile Solutions, based out of Bangalore. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Without further ado, let's jump into the discussion. And let me start with Sandeep. So Sandeep, as we have seen with Hagen explaining about the global electric vehicle, how it is getting adopted. And in India, we see so much of focus and investments that companies are doing. Now, Tata Power per se is offering a smart charging solution, right? Now, when this entire thing expands into a retail format, right? So let's say we are talking about like petrol pumps, yeah. So technologically, like what are you guys doing? How do you think it will evolve? So if you can share some perspective.
Yeah, thanks Gaurav for this. And thanks for getting me onto this EVs and Smart Technology Summit by SAP. I think, and this is a very cliche thing, that charging infrastructure is not about charging at all, really. Its entire piece is about the technology behind it. And so, we have a customer-facing mobile app, which is meant to be the cutting edge of technology in terms of platform, the back-end ERP. And also, I always say this, charging infrastructure is all about 5 or 6 C's. It's customer centricity, collaboration, convenient locations, cost and choice. And I think the big thing is about the customer experience. So, and fortunately, in this forum, just leave aside the cost and choice because that's to do with the vehicles and the cost of charging. Rest of the 3 things, collaboration, which is customer centricity and customer experience, have all to do with technology and digitization. Just to give you an example, a charger is not an island. A charger talks to the car talks to the cloud infrastructure to get all this information. The charger talks to other chargers. The charger and car talk to your mobile phone. And all of these things tap upon some data and talk real time. For example, in charging infrastructure also, and finally, of course, I come from the power company. All of these things have to talk to the grid. I mean, there are examples even happening, which is happening currently. The grid will send you an information saying that, look, the price of power between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock has reduced. So, dear customer, would you like to benefit from it? Yeah. The customer gives the command, yes. Charger listens to that command, tells the... Now, all of these things are not in the hypothetical domain. It's happening as we talk. Yeah. So I guess connected is the real 6th C, is what I would really like to add. And of course, these city planners, when I say city planners, there is also smart charger, smart grid, and there is a smart city. Now, smart cities need to have a heat map of all the vehicles that are there, location-wise, so that we can identify what is the best place to put a charger. All of these things have got huge amount of data, huge amount of technology behind it. And then to make it happen, I mean, installation of a charger, to my mind, is the easiest thing to do.
Right.
It is all of these things that go behind it is what makes the difference, is what I would believe.
Sure. I think that's a great answer and gives a lot of perspective on what goes into with so many things like smart cities coming in, so much of data and analysis. Thanks for that, Sandeep. Ashish, question for you. You offer electric vehicles and also conversion of two-wheelers in dual-powered two-wheelers. So it's very interesting and looks quite unique. So the question is, what are dual-powered two-wheelers, and are these dual-powered two-wheelers only for individual users, or it is also like a B2B business model?
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks for the query, and thanks to SAP team, first of all, for having me here in this forum of EV and Smart Technology Summit. So good evening to everyone. Gaurav, coming to the point that you raised, dual powertrain is essentially a new concept which Green Tiger is pioneering to bring it to India. The intent of dual powertrain remains where there are two powertrains which coexist on the same vehicle. So for example, there are two different kind of vehicles. One is the electric vehicle and one is the petrol vehicle, or ICE vehicle as we call it. However, in the dual powertrain, both the vehicle coexist on the same vehicle, by virtue of which the rider gets the optionality of choosing in between the electric vehicle or the petrol vehicle, whatever they want to ride as per their requirement. The simple intent which we have for the dual powertrain remains is that the rider can do a journey of, let's say, whatever, 60, 80 kilometers, what it needs to do on electric vehicle, and there exists a petrol or an ICE powertrain as a standby for the journey beyond it, so that the rider doesn't have a range anxiety. What happens in case if the charge runs out? What happens if there is an electric powertrain which develops a snag? So the dual powertrain gives the rider to use on the same vehicle whatever methodology or the powertrain they would like to ride. It's slightly different than hybrid technology, because hybrid technology where there exist two powertrain which are integrated with each other. However, in the dual powertrain, there are two distinct powertrain which coexist on the same vehicle. Just to give you a perspective, the technology like this did not happen. Even the automotive Indian standard did not have anything envisaged for something like this, which has now gotten approved in February 2022. So this is what the dual powertrain is about. The intent or the vision with which Green Tiger works, and I will come also to, I will take a point which Sandeep did mention. Hi, Sandeep. What you mentioned about the cloud infrastructure and how the vehicle has become smart now. So I'll come to that also. But just to give you a perspective, electric powertrain is all about the future vehicles. But there exist in the country almost around 2 billion vehicles, which are the petrol vehicles, which also need to be a part of the EV ecosystem. And there is no way how you can integrate them. It's not like tomorrow we're going to scrap all the vehicles which exist in the country today. So the conversion, Gaurav, what you asked about, is converting the existing petrol or ICE vehicle into a dual powertrain, by virtue of which we can integrate the existing two-wheeler guys into the EV ecosystem and give them a taste of how EVs will work in future, and thereby providing a bridge using the dual powertrains towards the EV ecosystem. So that is slightly longish, but that's what dual powertrain is all about. Now, coming to the second point which you stated, the gig economy, if I may call that, or if I may call that new age, the new age internet companies, it's a small portion or overall mobility requirement which the country has. So if you talk about it, the total, the country will be having roughly around 2 billion kind of a two-wheeler rider, wherein just the gig economy will not be crossing around 10 million or so. So while the gig economy is important, but the intent has always been how do we change the perception, or how do we bring the common rider into the EV or a dual powertrain and also at the same time work with the the new age gig economies, how to give their fleet aggregators or the riders a better solution or more affordable, economical, and at the same time less carbon oriented technology for their journey. So in very as in a one line statement, yes, we are working with both the direct consumers as well as the B2B business, as people call it, or the gig economy, the riders. Also, we are talking to various organizations like FMCG distribution, the pharma distributions, which are also highly reliant on the two-wheelers for their basic mode of mobility in their day-to-day lives. So that's what we are doing. And
Sure.
sorry, Sandeep, one point which you did mention, people don't appreciate what you talked about. The charger needs to be talking to the vehicle needs to be talking to the mobile phone, and chargers also need to be talking to each other. It's uh, very simply that you have put it across. But that is also one thing which Green Tiger is working very extensively, and that is one part that we think will be the one of the changing or one of the cornerstone for the changing technology that we are currently witnessing in the country. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ashish. What I liked is the analogy of a stepping stone to move to a full-fledged EV, and where probably a dual version kind of helps that. Probably in this you are also meeting the challenges which related to the EV infrastructure that you mentioned about the mileage or how much the EV can travel with your dual this thing. Okay, thank you for that. My next question is for Sandeep. So Sandeep, so we have seen that OEMs in India who work with municipals, STUs, right? And today there is a lot of, probably STUs are not going to buy buses anymore. I don't know what you think of it, but it's gone into a different model, right? So there would be service level agreements, there will be uptime requirements, and basis of some kilometers run, whatever is specified, I think it's called a GCC contract, and the revenues will come in, so will be penalties, there will be lots of parameters for penalties. And so in this, a very critical element in the upkeep of public service is the charging infrastructure and the charging infrastructure to deliver this. Again, from a technology standpoint, how does it impact you, and what are you guys doing about it as a smart charging solution provider?
Okay, the first part was the easy bit. What do I think about the GCC contracts? So I think we don't buy CDs and VCDs anymore because there is subscription.
Yes.
So just like that, we will not buy buses anymore. Nobody will buy buses anymore. It's just going to be a per kilometer. You pay for per kilometer usage in that sense, and it's a subscription, so to speak.
Sure.
That's something which the bus companies are dealing with. We provide charging to them. This is the way the world is moving towards Uberization, subscription, no ownership, and the works. So that's the easy bit. The difficult bit is how do you work on those contracts and how do you maintain SLAs? So I think, again, it brings me back to the tech element and a deep data analytics element, which means essentially there is a tight contract between the bus owning company and not bus owning, or the state transport authorities, the bus company and the charging infrastructure company, which essentially means that they will task you to do a certain amount of kilometers per month, per day, so that your obligation to the customer is maintained, which means if a BST bus example, and I don't know the exact, so just an example, a BST bus has to run, let us say, 150 kilometers in a day or thereabouts. They will task the bus company to do this. The bus company will task me to ensure that I supply charging for that 150 kilometers, which this bus is going to do. Now, there is a huge amount of data that is sitting. What is the kind of traffic that the bus is encountering? What is the state of charge? Now, all of this, we all need to pick up and have algorithms to deal with this so that I don't have to put one charger for every bus.
Yeah.
Because that increases my cost. And in this, cost is the entire, big variable. So we have to ensure that depending on where they're charging, I would rather sometimes put up charging along the way so that the bus continues to keep running, and which is called opportunity charging. The bus does not need to come back to the main origin depot. So if it goes from Back Bay to Sion and back, I could have one charger at Back Bay, one charger at, let's say, Sion, to ensure that the bus keeps running, because the more it runs, the more it sweats, the more revenue everybody earns. And the customer is happy because state transport is very happy because his asset is sweating, and the customers are happy because the buses continue to run. And there's a huge amount of data and workflow that goes behind it. Just to ensure if there is a particular part which had a life cycle of so many days and weeks, if you don't, and if you are able to maintain a data which says that it is likely to give way, then you actually do a preventive maintenance, again, basis of the data. So all of these things add up. Contracts of, let's say, the host, and I'm talking about the retail scenario. In a host situation, let us say a hotel like this, you have an agreement with the host for 5 years, 10 years. So you have to maintain that. And my colleague who's right here, Venkat, he is the guy who does that. He needs to know when is the contract expiring. Every month he needs to do I have to pay this host? I have to pay his power bill. And all of those things has to form a big, big workflow. If I don't meet the SLA, in a retail scenario, I lose money because the customer won't come for charging, because it is down. And in a contract scenario, which is for buses, I'm being penalized if I don't meet the SLA. So I think it's a very tight linkage to the data piece and the revenue piece, very, very clearly tight linkages. And that's how I think we have to be very careful. And to optimize, more sharply use that data, the more revenue that you would earn out of it.
Yeah. So it appears, Sandeep, that in this kind of thing, which is going to become more and more, operational efficiency, especially to keep the margins, will play a very key role.
Absolutely.
So in your view, transformational digital systems, like for that matter SAP or some, what kind of contribution can they make as you see it coming from the industry?
So I think in some sense, we are using the workflows which, and as I mentioned, my friend who is the head of commercial, he is very clearly focused on ensuring that every month there is a payout that is happening to the host. Every month there is a payout that is happening to the power company. Contract expires, you have to renew the contract on time. There is a hardware which has to be maintained, and the life cycle of that hardware, whether AMC is over, not over, that part is, all of those things are maintained by huge amount of data and workflows.
Yeah.
Any of those workflow things fail or are flawed. Just to give an example, somebody forgets to pay the bill of a power company on time. So power company is is very clearly obliged to just cut off your power. So what happens when they cut off the power? The charger is not functional. If the car comes to charge, there is no power that is available, and he goes back. That's an opportunity loss. And in a business which has got, in any case, long lead gestation, if these opportunities are, just taken away, then there's no hope. So I think people like Venkat are trying very hard to optimize and ensure that each of these likely failure points, whether human failure or machine failure, are minimized so that the revenue pool is optimized so that we are able to invest more and spread more.
Sure.
And that's as simple as that.
So that's where the critical enterprise class
Absolutely.
systems play a role.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ashish, next question, and it's again related to opportunities or challenges. EV adoption is not a cakewalk, right? Which we are seeing, especially around various models on how you're going to monitor the charge. Is there going to be a battery swap, or is there going to be some other model? So, what is the sense you make out of these things, and how is EV going to be adopted? What's your view?
Gaurav, what you have asked is basically a couple of queries put together. So I would try my level best to answer it. But just before I get into that, I would like to share that Sandeep, personally for me, I spent almost around 3 years, setting up how to stabilize the grid in UK for 3 years using my company Transtel. The intent had been that the grid is facing a lot of problem on two accounts. One is the new EVs which are getting connected, and thereby you are shifting the energy need from fossil fuel to electricity. And at the same time, you are also having a more and more influx of renewable generation, which is making the grid a little more unstable. So these are the two challenges which are coming on the grid level per se. Now, using that information and coming to the point, Gaurav, what you asked is what I see is that there are a lot of people talking about battery swapping situations, fast charging, etc. But that is good for an initial adoption. For the complete change, which we want to envisage, like shifting the entire mobility space into electric vehicle using the battery swapping or fast charger, my personal view is that our grid is not capable today to give a solution around that. Now, in order to do that, keeping that as an information, what my takeaway from that is that battery swapping is not a holy grail. It cannot work on all mode of mobility in the same manner. Now, that is where I think a lot of industry as well as policymaker intervention will come, that whom does it suit the most to? If you want to ask me personally, I think battery swapping will suit most to the large commercial vehicles, buses, and also the logistics sector. That is where the battery swapping will work. And even if you notice what Sandeep has been answering, it is all about pay per kilometer on buses or the trucks. It's not about the common consumer like you and me who go from work to office, home to work and back. So I think the battery swapping situation or the whole kind of solution will work more so into the large commercial vehicle and the public mode of transportation. However, for the small mobility, whether it's two-wheeler, whether it's the consumer cars, I think there it needs to be more like how do we work out the battery which is more chargeable towards at home rather than you need a separate infrastructure to charge them, because sooner or later, my personal view is, especially in the cities, we will hit a situation where the grid will be constrained to provide more and more charging infrastructure. So in order to do that, that's one of the main pillars on which we have been positioning our offering in Green Tiger, where we try to do that battery should be chargeable at home rather than having any separate infrastructure required. And it should be chargeable in accordance to whatever is the sockets which are available in our homes. So whether it's a 5 amp sockets, it should be chargeable in the 5 amp sockets. So when you talk about the large fleet of mobility, which essentially emanates from two-wheelers, I don't think so we are there or we would need the fast charging in a IFE. What we should be looking for is solving the real problem of the consumer, which is essentially around how do I, not make too many changes at the same time. Electric vehicle itself is a huge change. How do I ensure that I don't need a charging infrastructure infrastructure also along with it? How do I need to ensure that I don't need to keep working on the battery swapping situation? So my personal view for the EV adoption, we need to have very clear demarcated two strategies, one for the commercial vehicles and the large vehicles, which is on the battery swapping, and how do we make battery chargeable at home in the normal home sockets for the small mobility, which is essentially around two-wheelers or potentially even three-wheelers. So that is what I see. And very quickly coming to your, the second point is how do I see a EV adoption coming into the country as a whole? Yes, the start is good. We could have done better, but the start is good, promising. However, my personal view is that it will not be as swift and as fast as a lot of the people are talking about. If we get to a position where we have almost around 20% of the new vehicles, especially on the two and three wheelers, registered as electric vehicles by 2030, that will be a good feat for us. So we should not aim when we see of the EV adoption is a 120-year-old technology can be changed over next 5 years. That's not gonna happen. But what we should be doing is a small milestone is can we have the small mobility segment shift 20% by 2030? That will be a great feat in itself. So long and short, I would say, yes, it's a promising start, but we need to have a correction in our own view. How do we have the right expectations rather than measuring whether we are 100% EV by 2030?
Okay. So Ashish, one quick corollary to that, because you were in that space. So do you see that various value-added services in terms of usage-based, subscription-based commercials are increasing with the EV offerings, and does it help you to improve the interaction with the customers?
Yes. Again, in the market, I would say that there are three type of consumers which exist. One is essentially the riders, which are essentially in the fleet aggregators or which are in the delivery segment. There, the concept of mobility as a service or pay as you go is increasing, that we are witnessing in the market today. The second segment, if I may say so, the people who are actually, like the Uberization of the world, where we have very few players, but that is the market which is growing with people like Rapido, with people like Uber, Ola, etc. However, the largest market remains is ownership of the mobility, and in each household in India today, their concept remains is, do I own the vehicle or not? And the simplest way of owning the vehicle is, the first mode of owning the any form of mobility is two-wheelers. So to answer your point, Gaurav, yes, the mobility as a service is increasing. However, it's a very determined pocket where it is improving. Now, for a rider like you and me who's going commuting on a daily basis, are we shifting to mobility as a service? The answer is no at this point of time. And anybody who's in Bangalore, I know you all guys are in Mumbai, but anybody who's in Bangalore can tell you that finding an Uber at 6 o'clock is a nearish nightmare.
Yeah.
And then, you're kind of shifting to, again, ownership of vehicle on their own. So my personal view is that there will exist the mobility as a service as a platform for the ride aggregators and some rider. However, the 90% of the mobility will continue to be ownership driven. So that is the first part of your answer. And the second part of the answer is from a value added service. Again, I would take the reference from what Sandeep stated on the first thing. The rider wants to have a better control on the mobility. So it is not about the fuel gauge telling when you need to refuel the vehicle. That is no longer required. What the rider wants to understand also in the vehicle is, how am I driving? How do I improve the fuel efficiency? And like, for example, what Sandeep mentioned about the state of charge as one of the things which needs to be mentioned through the rider. So what is the state of charge, and within the SOC, how can I have the higher range rather than limited? So rider wants to understand all that. Rider also wants to understand the things like if there is an accident, can the helpline be triggered directly from the vehicle rather than somebody calling for an ambulance? Rider also wants to understand if, for example, my vehicle is stolen, can I remotely lock the vehicle or can I not lock the vehicle? So these are things which are like in a common parlance understood that it is good to have. But from our perspective, what we have seen in the market, the country is maturing. The entire IoT is maturing, and thereby rider more or the vehicle user more and more we are seeing wants a better control on the vehicle. So in a long run, my personal view is not mobility as a service for a vehicle owner or a day-to-day rider will be as important as how do we improve or how do we enhance the control which the rider exerts on the vehicle itself. So the IoT, the cloud infrastructure, the entire telematics in between the vehicle and the mobile, that will be the service which the rider would be looking
Okay.
for.
So it all boils down finally again to the infrastructure, the ease with which it can be consumed. Thank you for that, Ashish. So Sandeep, you want to say something? Yeah.
So quite a few things were being said, Ashish.
Yeah.
There are quite a few things I agree with, and there are three very distinct things that I have a different view on, just to share. So the first one is the EV adoption, amongst other things that you mentioned. I'm quite optimistic, and I'm sure anybody in this room, if you ask, he has already purchased his last petrol and diesel vehicle. And if you ask anybody, I would say, they would say their next vehicle is going to be electric. This is, right, very clear. Today, in a two-wheeler, three-wheeler context, the cost of ownership is something which is a very, very strong positive in favor of electric vehicles any which ways. So there is a very compelling requirement or compelling case for a two-wheeler and three-wheeler. Anybody who owns two-wheeler, even if he shifts today, he is benefiting. See, electric vehicles will never work if it's only about environment and sustainability. There is a clear need for a customer to find tangible benefits. Will it save me money? Will it give me convenience? And is it a better vehicle? Only if these three things come in, will the customer move to an electric vehicle or any other shift like this. He will not move just because it is green and it is sustainable and all of that. No, none of those. This is the good reason, three of them, and this is a nice to badge value. I am also sustainable. I am also green. So these are the three reasons which stack very, very strongly in favor of two-wheeler, three-wheeler even today.
Yeah.
And for cars, let me put it this way. The adoption has to happen. It's not a question of whether, it's a question of how soon and why. Why am I saying this? There are three big stakeholders in this business. Number one is the government, who wants to reduce pollution. Number two, it is the automakers, whose is their existence, very existence is under stake.
Yeah.
Government is pushing this very, very heavily because Mr. Modi's commitment to COP26 as well as Paris Agreement won't happen if electric vehicles don't happen in a big way. Second, car manufacturers have stopped or have committed to stop development of ICE trains from 2025 and 26. Jaguar Land Rover, we had a call with them earlier today.
Yeah.
2026 onwards, no non-electric vehicles will see the roads. Volkswagen, General Motors, Toyota was the last one to. All of these companies will stop, and this is an official statement, this is in the public domain, stop development of the regular petrol diesel vehicles after 2025, only electric.
Sure.
And the third biggest stakeholder is the customer. Customer is asking for it, automotive companies are wanting to give, and government is pushing both of them to take. So there is no way that the adoption won't happen. So I'm extremely optimistic about the adoption. Now, whether it is 30%, 40%, so here's my take. 30% by 2025-26, 80%, 90% of two-wheeler and three-wheeler will move by 2025 and 26. And buses, largely governed by the government agencies, will be depending on how much funding they have. Given by the current atmosphere, 5,000 buses, 2,000 buses, all these tenders are working in progress and buses being delivered. The problem is the supply chain.
Yeah.
The problem is not the customers don't want it. The problem is supply chain is not able to deliver.
Yeah.
So this is one, EV adoption. Second, specifically about the swapping. I think swapping is very, very suitable for, again, small battery sizes. Buses, I don't see that happening as much. Two-wheeler and three-wheeler, very likely. Three-wheeler, definitely. And of course, the third thing that maybe I missed one. So these are the two things very clearly which the third one I think I heard Ashish mentioning was the grids not being ready. So I think the grids have to reorient themselves. Today there are smart grids which are available, which companies like us are very easily capable of doing. Example, if all the vehicles get converted to electric overnight and tomorrow morning, the power surge or power requirement will just go up by 10%. India is such a big power consuming country. And India is a power surplus country, just so that everybody knows. So we see that kind of a power fluctuations on a daily basis, maybe 2 times in a day. The only thing is, if every vehicle comes to charge at the same time, then the solutions like the one that I mentioned, car talking to the charger, charger talking to the grid, these are smart grid solutions which are very, very easily doable. And it's happening. It's not something which is in the realm of, science fiction. It's happening. So yeah, while this is an extremely optimistic view, and I'm happy to hear Ashish's view, which gave me a chance to clarify.
A question connected to that, since you are so optimistic. Do you think India will be leading globally from the EV infrastructure, the adoption of EV? What's your view? You are in that, you talk to people in that segment.
Yeah. So I think India has got a very strong advantage, which means, and like in a lot of other things, so it's going to be a leapfrogging. We are moving from petrol and diesel engines directly to, let us say, electric. And with people like Ashish, who are trying to, put the dual powertrains. I think the customers are seeing a value in movement directly because they are seeing what is happening across the world.
Right.
For the very simple reason that, see, I think the big advantage that we all see is, unlike a petrol pump where you have to go to fuel up at 110 rupees or equivalent, there is power everywhere, okay? You just have to tap it.
It's a very interesting view, yeah.
At home, where maximum charging happens, so here is the fun fact, 70% of the cars have never seen a public charger, 30% of the cars have never ever seen a public charger. So there goes the EV infrastructure in the public domain out of the window. Because as long as you have a parking which is personal for your car, you have a charger for your car, quite like a personal private petrol pump for yourself. You don't need to go anywhere else. And power is available anywhere. So I think the optimism comes from the fact India is a power surplus country. Government is pushing it very, very hard. And thirdly, we will have this advantage of leapfrogging and learning from other countries like Scandinavia, like even China. I mean, anything that happens in China happens in let's say, in a lag of 3 to 7 years in India. Telecom, it happened. Retail, it happened. Digitization, it happened. And it's happening in EV. It may not be 7 years, it may be 2 years, 3 years, and maybe we'll catch up because technology innovations, as Mahesh Babu was also mentioning, are 70%, you just heard him say, 70% of an electric vehicle is about software.
Yeah.
And who is the software powerhouse in the world? I don't have to say this to you. All the software developments for global countries, globally, are happening right here in India. Bangalore, Mercedes, Audi, all those software development research centers are right here. So yeah, whether an Indian manufacturer would really like to take benefit of all of that, maybe people like Ashish can take advantage of that. But the fact is that 70% of the car is software, and no guesses, no
Sure.
prize for guessing who is a software powerhouse. So
Sure.
my optimism comes from all of these.
Absolutely. So fair enough. So thank you very much, Sandeep. Thank you very much, Ashish, for that very interesting and insightful discussion. I'm sure we will have opportunities to discuss on these topics further. And thank you for your time. Thank you all.